Representative, you can be here. Please. Cheryl, you can sit here. Come on in. Yeah. Are we set? We're good, Brooke? Okay. Well, good morning, and thank you all for being here. It's an honor to host this bill signing ceremony today to bring awareness and solutions to the crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous persons in Montana. Around me are leaders who have carried the torch on this issue in the state legislature. Representative Sharon Stewart Paragoy, Representative Rina Lee Whiteman Pena, Representative Donovan Hawk, Senator Jason Small, Senator Susan Weber, Representative Jonathan Windyboy, Representative Tyson Running Wolf, and Representative Rhonda Knudsen. I'm also pleased to be joined by Misty Kuhl, our Director of the Government's Office on Indian Affairs. And today we are all honored to be joined by Cheryl Horn, the aunt of Selena Not Afraid, and Cheryl's boyfriend and daughters. Thank you for your courage to be here today and share your family story. The missing and murdered Indigenous persons crisis has tragically impacted far too many families in Montana. And let me be clear, it must end. In Montana, Native Americans make up about 7% of the population, but they account for 26% of missing persons. Between 2017 and 2019, nearly 80% of those reported missing were teenagers younger than 18 years of age. Native American women face a murder rate 10 times higher than the national average, and 84% experience some form of violence in their lifetime. Time is of the essence, and we must bring all resources to bear to curb this tragic trend. I want to thank Representative Sharon Stewart Paragoy for spearheading this bipartisan effort in the Montana House of Representatives. On Monday, it was my honor to sign two of her bills to address this crisis, House Bills 35 and House Bill 98. House Bill 35 establishes the Missing Indigenous Persons Review Commission at the Montana Department of Justice. The Attorney General will appoint members of the commission to include representatives from the tribes, state government, nonprofits, and local, state, federal, and tribal law enforcement. House Bill 98 extends the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Persons Task Force and the Looping in Native Communities, or LINK, grant program. Thank you, Representative Stewart Paragoy, for being such a strong advocate for victims, survivors, and their families. Would you like to say a few words?
Yes. Thank you, Governor. This is when we started out with this issue a session ago, one of the things that we found was that there were considerable gaps in the system in which the missing persons would fall through, and that there was a lag in the response time. And so we had a suite of bills at the time to begin to fill in those gaps. And so but it was only for 2 years. And so the State Tribal Relations Committee continued this effort. We were able to interface with both the task force and tribal leaders across Montana, and came up with, again, the reauthorization. House Bill 98 is a reauthorization. And then upon recommendation of the task force and the community members, we also have the commission, which would then help in with the cases that are not solved. And some of these cases have been for a number of years. And just like the governor said, it's not only an American Indian problem across the state of Montana, it is a problem for all Montanans. And the reason why I say that is that we also have the governor is initiating a program to then begin to take a look at the rise of drugs across the state of Montana. Indian country has been impacted by drug trafficking. Along with drug trafficking, then we're impacted with human trafficking. And the human trafficking is not just within the exterior borders of the tribes, but it also is part and parcel within the state of Montana, because we have a east-west connection, north and south connection. And we found those out in our deliberations over the past several years. So it's important as Montanans to come together and to be able to ensure that there is, that we have our young women, our young men, our people are safe, our children are safe. And so I thank you, Governor, for allowing me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative, for your leadership. I also want to thank Senator Jason Small for leading this fight in the Montana Senate. Senator Small sponsored Senate Bill 4 to extend the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Persons Task Force. These laws equip the state with the tools needed to track data, raise awareness, and strengthen interagency collaboration to protect Montana's Indigenous persons. Thank you, Senator, for your dedicated advocacy on the issue. Would you like to say a few words?
So, once again, my name is Jason Small, Senate District 21. The district's rather large. It has 2 reservations on it, the Crow and the Northern Cheyenne. And this is one of the hot spots that we're dealing with. Oftentimes, we have higher numbers of missing than anywhere else. I took the time to write down some statistics because, well, I like them and a lot of people like them, and it helps to explain where we're coming from. As was stated earlier, in 2017, the State Tribal Relations Interim Committee started on this journey. We dove into the situation, the missing, murdered, and Indigenous. We collected data. We worked with departments. The group itself came up with a great slate of bills. We ran those in the 2019 session, and we were pretty successful. It worked out well. We passed many of the bills, 4 or 5 altogether, and we kind of hit the tip of the iceberg on everything. So this year, or over the past interim, I was chairing the committee, and some of the recommendations from Senate Bill 312, which had come prior, one of the things that bill did was the task force had to set forth some recommendations for us to continue to follow, and we did that. And we turned around with another set of bills to basically carry on. So statistically in the state of Montana, we have 8 federally recognized tribes. 78,000, or a little over 6.5% of the population of Montana is Native, and 47% of that doesn't live within the confines of the reservation. They live elsewhere. In many of the bigger towns, Great Falls, Billings, there's large congregations. So with this legislation, we're actually nailing down stuff in those areas also. It's helping everybody. Things we found since we've tabulated data is males go missing at a very similar rate as the females. Surprisingly so. 97.7% of the people who hit the missing persons clearinghouse are found. But unfortunately, that leaves 2.3%, and that's still too large a number. That's people's families, parents, kids, brothers, sisters, and we got to continue to knock that number down, and that's what we're still trying to do. So 1/3 of the missing who hit the clearinghouse are generally found within about 1 day. which is a pretty good number. 78% of them are found within the week. And then statistically after that, things, they become a little worse generally. The outcomes aren't as good and you know, maybe we don't end up finding them. But conscientiously, we've taken efforts and we've taken steps within the state as a group, and we're trying to combat that, and eventually, you know, we're gonna come out ahead. It's getting better by the day. And one thing I'd like to say too is thanks to this group, because no one person can move a mountain by themselves, and it takes a group effort, and we've really had that here. And I appreciate you, Governor. Thank you for signing these today and giving us the opportunity to speak.
Okay, thank you, Senator. Before I sign your bill into law, I'd like to ask Misty Cool, our Director of the Governor's Office of Indian Affairs, to introduce Cheryl Horn, the aunt of Selena Not Afraid.
Thank you so much, Governor. Before I begin my introduction, could we just have a very brief moment of silence as we honor and remember our missing and murdered Indigenous people? Thank you. Thank you very much. This is such an important issue, and as the senator and the representative have stated, this is an epidemic. The reason that we're here, quite honestly, is heartbreaking. But I applaud this group's effort. I respect them and admire them so much for bringing this to the forefront. Without Cheryl Horn's efforts, I don't think that this issue would have become in the spotlight the way that it has. And it is my absolute honor and pleasure and privilege to introduce Ms. Horn. She has been so instrumental, pivotal in dragging missing and murdered Indigenous people into the national spotlight. And she has worked tirelessly as a family advocate to keep families intact, to protect our sons and our daughters. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Misty. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Governor, for signing this bill. And I just want to thank everybody who has had any input, any effort whatsoever in these bills. Over a year ago, we stood alone in a rest area, wondering what we were going to do because everybody left us. Everybody who had authority left us. So we stayed and we figured out ways to make Selena interesting. It hurts me to say that, but I had to make her story stand out from everybody else's. Otherwise, people were going to just scroll on by her. So it took a lot of strength, and I got that strength from her and my sister Jackie, her mom. I'm not her mother, so I was able to stand up. I was able to do all this stuff, but I wasn't able to do it alone, never alone. If it wasn't for other families where we started, for volunteer search efforts, and for Operation Lady Justice, for the Montana Task Force, for the Indian Caucus, and not just the Indian Caucus, everybody who voted yes on these bills, and definitely the governor. It all ends up here, and we're here because of him, and we're here because of not just Selena, but Selena told me, don't stop, because there's other girls standing behind me. So when we did get her back, which is amazing, a miracle that we got her back because some don't come home. From there, I told myself it wasn't over, that I had things to do. I didn't know what the things were to do, so I thank everybody else who joined the race behind me because they knew what to do. Me, I didn't know what to do. I just knew to stand and shout as loud as I could and hope somebody heard me and ran with it. So we're all here today because somebody did hear Selena, they did hear Sarah, they did hear Moni. They heard them through us, and they heard them through them, and they heard them through Governor Gianforte, and that's why we're their voices. So I want to thank everybody, and I'm very thankful and honored to be here. So I just thank you for continuing the fight because it's not over. Like we said, we might be here again in 2 years, but so far we're doing good, and I just appreciate, and not just every family I speak for appreciates everybody in this room. And from this day, we will always offer their praises up because they're what makes the action happen. And we appreciate them, and that's why we put them here, and we will continue them here. So thank you, everybody, for inviting me and bringing Selena to the table. And with Selena is a lot of others that we just don't see, but they're with her. So thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, Cheryl, and thank you for your courage in sharing your family's story and just the memory of your beautiful niece, Selena, not afraid. Her life was cut short far too soon, and I want to thank you for your courage in sharing the story. In honor and remembrance of Selena Not Afraid and all the victims and survivors of this crisis, it is my great honor to sign Senator Small's Senate Bill 4 into law. And I have it here. Whoops. I need enough pens for everybody. Family. Jason. Rhonda. Thank you. Tyson. Jonathan. There you go. Yeah, we pass these over. Who did I miss? There you go. Well, now is not the time to rest. We must work collectively as Montanans to bring this crisis to an end. I want to thank everybody for being here today and your leadership on this issue. And with that, we're happy to open it up for some questions, if there are some from the media. Yes, Jackie.
I have a couple of questions. First, you talked about broader community action needed. This is a legislative effort, but what could individual communities be doing, or the broader Montana community as a whole?
Would you like, Representative?
One of the things that we found through our deliberations this past interim was the communities came forward and felt that there was a need for training because of the volunteers that do come forth, not only training but also assistance. And so we have some foundations that contacted me that have stepped forward to help with assistance to the families that are searching for their young people. And then we also have, but the training, and I believe, what is it called, Operation Lady Justice? Yes, at the federal level is stepping up a bit more, but at the community level, awareness is important. I believe safety training for our young people, no matter what, unfortunately, no matter what economic level, because we're dealing with predators. And so we have to ensure that our young people know how to keep themselves safe. And so education, safety awareness is also important. At the community level, I believe that, like for example, on the Crow Indian Reservation, we only have 4 officers to provide us public safety. And so with some of the communities, I understand Wyola community, prior community have their community watch. And so where there's lack of so we have people that are stepping up. We have some of our own veterans that have stepped up and said that they will help in the search and rescue they have ideas. So the community is engaged. I think the greater community needs to be engaged as well. And that if there's something that seems wrong or odd, report it, and report it quickly.
Yeah. Senator Small, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, for me, I'm not going to put it quite as eloquently, but between the programs we have, you know, there's people making a conscientious effort all the time to basically curtail this epidemic we're having, but at the end of the day, it boils down to something pretty simple, and that's watch your neighbor. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Do we have any online questions? We don't. Any other questions here in the room? Jonathan?
Thank you, Governor Jonathan Amberry, Montana Television Network. I just wanted to ask if anyone could give some idea of, now that we've had 2 years of the task force, what do we feel that we've learned or we've gained by going through the task force so far?
Who would like to comment on that? Okay.
When we set forth legislation initially under 312, which put the task force together and basically pointed out who was going to be on it and set forth the operating process, one of the be-all end-alls of it was they were to report back information and to tabulate and record and basically look for end routes to make things happen easier. So what have we found is a lot of this is repetitive. The people who are showing up missing have done it one or more times. A lot of it is the youth, you know, which should signify the fact that we need to be maybe addressing the youth runaway issue a lot harder than we are right now. And that's something we could definitely tackle in the future. One of the other things we found with it was in Indian country itself, with the task force, it brought a lot to the table. It kept people talking. And as we were trying to repass this legislation and re-up and keep everything moving, that came to the forefront. What was one of the great aspects of the task force itself was there were a lot of meetings. There was huge community buy-in. And it kept the light on, you know, it kept people talking, which has probably been the most, in my mind, beneficial thing from it.
Okay, thank you, Senator. Would anybody else like to make a comment?
I'd just like to add more to his comment about the runaways. The area I deal with, the first thing they want to say is, she's a runaway, or he's a runaway. So I really agree on the education part, because it took us days to say, no, she's not a runaway, no, she's not a runaway. So the educating the children, that's where we got to drop down to their level now. It's, you know, we've done all the hard work around the circle, but the core of it is the children and the teaching them young enough to know safety, teaching them young enough to know safety things that I didn't have to grow up with, but are now crucial. So that's where I hope to see things go, is reaching into the communities, educating our young children, boys and girls, because that was mentioned today, and that's very important. It's our boys too. It's just a little more silent, because I'm not sure if it has to do with culture, today's culture or native culture, but when it comes to men being victims, it gets overlooked and it's not spoken as much. You know? So I agree with the education, and that's where I hope to see the task force heading. You know, as families, we sit back and watch the process, the data collecting with patients. So I'm hoping that's the next step, is actually teaching our children. It's on them too. It's on them, and it's on us as parents. So that's where I hope to see the task force head.
Good. Yeah.
Mr. Governor, thank you for the opportunity as well. You know, I want to kind of dovetail a bit about what was said here. You know, I've been here 20 years, my 10th session here, and over the course of that time, I've seen a lot of perceptions or misperceptions, especially with our colleagues within our legislature, highlighting that in the House alone of the 100 members this session, there's 40 that are freshmen for the first time. And so as far as education is concerned, we definitely need to make sure that education of our colleagues needs to be addressed as far as within our own body. Because if they're not aware or educated with our situation, then their, I guess, how they proceed with their vote may be clouded or not as clear as the rest of us in the caucus. And so just because that a lot of people in Montana think that we're wards of the federal government, which we are in a way, but they also forget that we are citizens of the state of Montana, and that's what needs to be, the message needs to be told statewide. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And then one more comment?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Representative?
The other thing is I'd like to give a shout out to former Attorney General Tim Fox, as well as Attorney General Austin Knudsen, and for their leadership, and also for the Department of Justice in working with the task force and working with Indian Caucus. And we have former Representative Alan Doan, who has championed this issue from the very beginning when he was on the State Tribal Relations Committee. And so I'd like to thank all of them and the staff for working with us and providing the trainings and the opportunities so that this information that gets out to law enforcement, gets out into the broader Montana community as well. Thank you, Governor.
Representative Pena?
Mr. Governor, I'd just like to mention that last time I was in here was the signing of the HANA's Act. And that was a great step for Indian country. And just like Cheryl and Selena's family, Melinda Harris, mother of Hannah Harris, spoke loud. She was the voice of Hannah, who was murdered on the Northern Cheyenne Reservation. Because of that, it began a tidal wave of missing and murdered Indigenous women. But that wasn't only the beginning. You know, it has been going on for quite some time, going unnoticed. And one of the things that we have to realize that not drugs and alcohol are not always the factor. As you probably have read or seen in the news just recently, we had an 8-year-old child murdered on the Crow Indian Reservation. So it doesn't, the stigma and saying that drugs and alcohol relate to a lot of the missing and murdered Indigenous people. Well, we have to set that aside, and just as Representative Windy Boy stated, we are citizens of Montana. And we have to realize that no matter what culture you are, what color you are, if you are missing or murdered, you still are a person of interest. And I say, you know, because of Hannah's Act, it has broadened a lot of aspects in finding, doing the act on Hannah's Act for missing and murder. But it has been going on for far too long without being recognized. But we are the voice. We have Christy Woodenthal, we have Denise Russell, we have Jay Sarah. You know, we have these young individuals that are still, Hub Williamson, Garrett Stewart. We have some that have never made it home. Shekinah Blue, she's still missing, you know. She's missed 18 years old out of Billings, Montana. You know, she was my granddaughter. And one of the things that I would say is that I think we need to also buckle down on the internet. Because I know the internet has a lot of stuff on there that entices young women and young girls, and the next thing you know, you see them on a missing website, EMS, or wherever it might be in the community. And you know, it all buckles down to a community effort. It says that it takes a community to raise a child. And that's where, starting within our own communities of helping, you know, I would really like to say a thank you to SAR from Northern Cheyenne Reservation. They played a major role in helping with Selena's disappearance. And Teresa Small, the coordinator, and her crew. But because of that, I think that we need to put more dollars to these rescue teams, search and rescue, and recognize them more because they are the front line when it comes to topics like this or things like this. You know, they go day and night, they have endless hours to do what they can in all aspects at the drop of a hat to be out there and searching and doing their part in all of this. But I'd like to thank you. I'd like to thank the representatives for pushing this forward, you know, and I'd also like to thank former Representative Ray Peppers for her initiative in what she did in the process of the Hannah's Act and you know, it doesn't seem, we know our kids, we know if there's something within an hour, 2 hours, or whatever it might be. So I really appreciate all the efforts that are being done, but I think that we have to continue as legislators, as the governor, as, you know, those that are in leadership to continue to make this a successful in all of our consumer measures. Thank you.
I think we have one last question online.
Hi, this is Caitlin Nicholas from Yellowstone Public Radio. I was wondering how House Bill 98 and Senate Bill 4 work together or differ, and if there's any reconciliation needed between the bills now that they've been signed into law.
Yeah, they'll be coordinated.
Yeah, this is Senator Small. They'll be coordinated together because they do overlap a little bit.
Okay, great. That concludes our press conference for today. I just want to thank Cheryl again for traveling here with your family and telling your story, and all of the leadership shown in the legislature to get these done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.